over in the Boom Studios booth. We're going to be chatting about Once and Future. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent.
Like back in New York for a while. It's been a long time since I've been here.
Boom Studios right now is putting out 2 of my favorite books. One being Once and Future. Honestly, one being something completely different, but let's chat about Once and Future instead.
When Boom approached me saying like Dan was available as an artist, and Dan's an artist I've always loved.
Yeah.
And that sort of speaks to the sort of book I want to do. So it's that kind of, I went back for the sort of half-developed ideas. As every writer has a treasure chest of like stuff they've played with and fun. Not now. And it's like, oh no, doing like a horror adventure comic suddenly made a lot of sense with Dan. And the other side of me was like, as well as doing my indie books, like, Wicked Divine and Die and all these other things, I do a lot of books a lot of my work for hire books. I do books like, say, Dr. Aphra from Marvel, which was this Star Wars character.
Yeah.
So this part was like, can I do a create a robot which has more the kind of the beat of like the mainstream books? In that way, how, something that's a bit more, less art film, more blockbuster, and that kind of like, let's put those rhythms in there, and that's kind of where Once and Future came from.
Right.
And it's, it's still about how stories control human and the questions of identity. So it's all got like the relatively meaty stuff, but it's also got like a grandmother with a machine gun mowing down Arthurian knights. That kind of vibe. With Dan, it's like, it would be absolutely an insult not to do this kind of book with Dan. And yes, he does the character work incredibly well, and he makes I mentioned the word blockbuster. Blockbuster is also about having as charismatic actors you like. But at the same time, he does the fundamental grandeur, a big word, but like. Just the explosion of it, the 300 million budget of it, and which is kind of what you like.
Right. I mean, like honestly, Dan's work has this simplistic beauty to it, but there's also this incredible kinetic energy involved with it. So like, you have these panels where it's like, oh, it's very disarming, and it's lovely, and then something horrific happens simultaneously, and it all still works perfectly.
Definitely, the thing with Dan is like when he mentioned, it's kind of a horror adventure book. He was very into, he hasn't really done a horror book like that before, and it's like no. He's all in. So when he actually summons up this stuff, it's like a delight to see it to come back.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I know there's been a lot of chatter about the book itself, about the Nationals, and things that are going on in terms of politics and Arthurian lore. What I want to ask you about is actually the relationship between Duncan and Bridget and that family sense, because like you did say it's a blockbuster thing. You got machine gun toting grandma, which by the way, I desperately wish she was my own grandmother. But I think there's something more to this family dynamic. Is this something from your own life? Like, where did this come from?
Honestly, like, it's very easy, but also not wrong to jump upon the implicit politics of the book about that. And there's all those are the kind of the easy, big political books. But I think you're right. The further you go into the book, the more it actually becomes about this family dynamic. It's about this grandmother and this grandson and how different they are.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the core idea of that kind of relationship, like, I had the idea for the Arthurian undead stuff that was the idea in the file. Then it's, okay, what are the adventurers?
Yeah.
And I found myself thinking, grandmother, grandchild is not something I see very often. My gran who lived around the corner was Irish. She came over when she was 14, so like she came over younger than Bridget to work.
Yeah.
And that was that kind of like, that's an interesting one. In that, my background is fundamentally working class, but I was pretty much the first kid from my family to go to university. So this kind of like, coming from very different places, but still being very different close. I mean, my gran didn't quote unquote raise me, but she was like outside my parents, the closest adult influence in my life.
Right.
So I was like, I can explore that dynamic a little. And to be fair, Bridget's not much like my gran was. But like, there is stuff that is though. Yeah. And actually, I named her Bridget after my gran. My gran was a biddy, which of course is short for Bridget.
Okay.
So that was my kind of little noddy tribute. And then the core of that, and then you just build. That's the kind of, people get the idea, is this character based on someone? It's like, well, based is always a strong word. Was this character, okay, that kind of dynamic? Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like there's something fundamental about grandparents wanting to protect their grandchildren. In particular, something happens with their own kids where they're like, you're fine, moving on. But then there's also, at times, there's like this double-edged sword to that where they also have expectations of you. And I think we're definitely seeing this with those two.
I'm smart, and like the more like, because they're like, that's fundamental joy in terms of like, why did you never mention this?
Yeah.
And she didn't. And like, and the more we go into, the more kind of the secrets unwinding, you learn more about the history. And that's kind of like the great joy of moving it to an ongoing means that some of the family mysteries, I'm seeding more stuff now because I know I'm going to be doing it. For the reader, it's great because you come in with, you are like Duncan, you don't know anything.
Right.
And especially Arthurian stuff, it's like people know Excalibur, art, you may know some of the key beats.
Yeah.
You probably don't know all the stuff. So you need someone to be ignorant and have stuff explained to. But at the same time, that dynamic eventually changes because you learn more, and the physical, and for me, that knowledge stuff will fade the more you go into it, because Duncan picks up stuff. What's interesting is like what Gran will do, which Duncan won't.
Right.
Duncan's, he's the ethical core, if you will.
Yeah.
Whilst Gran is literally the person with the machine gun.
Yeah.
And that's like people thinking of brains and brawns. That's an easy way to look at it. It's not that at all. It's utilitarianism versus idealism as well. And there's a lot, and calling it What's the Future that's a really fun implication as well.
Yes.
And like, but I can imagine Bridget rolling her eyes at that title once. Are you saying once?
Yes.
And that's the fun of it, and that's so fun to write. That's the other side of it. And Bridget just spits out lines,
yes.
And Duncan's the great straight man in terms of like Duncan's big goofy face response, like what?
Yeah.
Love him.
No, it's fantastic. She's honestly one of my favorite characters this year. And again, I know she's more fun, and this isn't maybe something like Die necessarily. But again, I think there's more to it than might be seen.
I hope so. I always worry it goes dark. I mean, it doesn't go as dark as say Die does.
Yeah.
But I kind of because it's a different genre. Die's
definitely different.
Die's it's a literary genre comic, but done in the style of a genre comic. Whilst this is a genre comic, but with real character beats.
Yes.
So you get to the big emotional truths, and the characters connect, and they let each other down, and they reclaim each other, and that's what you like. I mean, for me, my favourite blockbuster movies in that way are always about that kind of what do they really want? Why are they where they are? What's the truth of it? And that's 100% what I want to throw into it. In that, I'm somebody whose work does lead pretentious, but the idea of actually this, my love of genre is very real, and the stuff I like is really big, personal, human. It's like my love of Aliens, for example. Aliens is really about these very strong, defined characters,
yes.
and how they fail and how they succeed. And Gorman going back with a grenade.
Yes.
It's I will never not love that bit, because Gorman is useless.
Yes.
Does he redeem himself? Probably not really. But it's one of those kind of the conversation like that, and how they prove who they are.
Yeah.
So there's some especially towards the end, because I'm just about to hand in issue 6. There's some beats in there. I'm like, they made me wince. I can't believe you're doing that. So hopefully people will feel the same.
Okay. Bridget and Duncan have a very specific design. How much was your influences? How much was just Dan coming back at you with this is what they look like?
I would say I'm trying to leave as much space for Dan to be Dan as possible. It's you always write for the artist.
Yeah.
And in the case of I want charismatic, interesting people. I'm trying to think I remember I'm trying to think what's changed between the early drafts of. I think Duncan came out pretty much solid. Okay. It's Duncan. Dan does really good beefcake, so that kind of give me nerdy beefcake, Dan, and he that worked entirely.
Yeah.
Bridget took a little bit because if you ever talk to Dan about this, definitely ask him. But Dan, obviously, you don't really draw many old people in comics, and they have an old person who's a lead. So, and explain how much he talks about how much he loves playing with her face now, and you get the expressions. So she's expressive in a different way. I can't forget if I tasked her to age him up or age him down. There's one who's kind of can we make him look old but not. She's got to be physically be able to move around as well. So that's definitely the balancing thing there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something really amazingly disarming about her appearance, but also there's so much wisdom that she can display. I love the fact that we start out with her in basically what we would refer to as an old age home here, or where it's just there she is, she's doing her thing, and it's always that question of is that person actually sane? I love that you don't wait. You're no, it's okay. Yep. She's totally put together.
Yeah, it's worryingly sane. I found myself thinking in terms of Granny Weatherwax from the Pratchett books. In this kind of, I was a huge Pratchett fan as a teenager, in fact, and still now. But that kind of the steel, the kind of the cold iron in her head, as I think Pratchett would probably put it. In terms of, I'm not having any of this nonsense, and that's fun. That kind of she gets to walk in and be. She's far less kind than I am. I have a softer communication with it than, for example, Bridget does. Bridget is an eye roll. I think the most defining role of her, sounds like nonsense to me. It doesn't matter if it's true, it's still nonsense. Yeah. And that's kind of I do love her. And that she just comes out very easily. And that's kind of you get characters I don't know, 000 or Chuck in Die. Characters who are very easy to write for because they have a lot of things to say, which is a delight.
Yeah, no, honestly, Bridget's dialogue is some of my favorite. I find it to be very quotable, honestly. She hits all of the beats I'm looking for. I didn't even know I was looking for a book like this until you put that out there. Of the upcoming issues, what's your favorite so far?
That's really tricky. Actually, I was fond of 2.
I know you can't tell us anything about what's coming, but...
I don't know. It's one I don't know. You don't know if 5 and 6 should be the best until you don't really know until Dan actually draws it though. Because it's comics for me is always about how it looks when it's finished.
Right.
And you sit back and go, oh no, that works. I mean, like, an issue of Die just came out this week, and I was a bit worried about it, and kind of maybe it's trying to do too much, but no, people love it. And I'm like, actually no, I could sit back and go, actually, by the magic of comics, this holds together.
Right.
But for me, it's like, I don't even break it into issues. With Once the Future, I want it's like a movie on paper. The idea of the 6 issues, this big single statement, and they'll read great issues, and they get the cliffhangers, they rush on.
Yeah.
But then they kind of, when they put them together and form this one story, this chapter, that's something else as well. So I don't really break them apart like that.
That's fair.
Yeah. For example, Bridget, it's like, you mentioned like the dialogue, but I remember when I was starting to think about it, I wrote a line that's in the first issue, and that kind of, I used to hunt vampires. What happened? I ran out of vampires, and that was literally the first thing I wrote for the book. In that kind of, and that immediately, what circle around that? And oh no, that's her.
Yeah,
that's her.
it.
One of the great joys of comics, you do get to play.
Yeah.
It's not a medium when you're necessarily tied to one thing, in that you can iterate quickly, you can try ideas out and see how they feel. And so it's always really suited me, how it really motors. And you get, especially being a writer, I always describe writers as parasites. So I tried it in that kind of, artists can do it without you. They could write this. Sometimes I want to be as best as I can for all the people around me. If I'm going to be a parasite, I want to be a useful and interesting parasite. So yeah, it's really such fun at the moment.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You and Dan are putting out an amazing book. It's just a perfect blend of writing and art put together. You guys are telling such an amazing, cohesive, and incredible looking and sounding story.
So the fun thing, of course, the Arthurian is that I realised, there's definitely so much room to do more of it. In that I realised there's such major characters I've never put in, like Arthurian characters like Lancelot's not in the first volume,
right.
like Merlin's not in the first volume.
Right.
These kind of like, I'm leaving so much meat on the bone here. And the thing is, it's also about the folklore of the British Isles. So I'm sort of, I'm starting to work on the second arc right now, and in terms of like, okay, what other stuff can I take? And that's going to be the fun when you realise, we're going here, and now we're going to bring this in, and now you're seeing, this versus that. So yeah, and there's so much about the conversation about what these stories meant at different times, because Arthur, the original Welsh myths are like about 500 AD-ish, and like about 650 when they start becoming Arthur, and so that's been around for like 1500 years.
Yeah.
And they have been, it's been a Welsh nationalist symbol, it's been a British nationalist symbol, it's been like this weird French fantasy about what Britain is like,
right.
and so how different periods have looked at Arthur and made that story matter. That's one of the things that really interests me intellectually about it. And then you also get, undead Arthur with like cool swords and stuff.
Right.
So I get my cake and eating it.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating because it's like, over here in the States we have an idea of that based on pop culture. So it'll be interesting to get another take on it, and hopefully also, stir fascination and interest in Arthurian lore, since there is so much to it.
It's definitely one of the things I'm trying to bracket in that, as in, you try to bracket as in terms of like, cause you can't just stop and have a lecture. As in, okay, let me talk about the French Romanticists. That kind of, you give enough, and the idea, you just open up. Arthur's been different stuff, and of course, what I'm doing now is also that. This is part of the conversation. So this is a story about what does Arthur really mean anyway? Yeah. But at the same time, that is also part of the story, and then someone down the line will riff, use me as something, as another reference point, and that's part of how stories work.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a time.
I love it. Kieran, thank you so much for taking time out to talk with us. Your passion for this book comes through in every page.
Thank you.
If you've been living under a rock and you don't know about Once and Future, go out and get it. It's 100% worth the price of admission. It's probably worth more than the price of admission, honestly. Grab it and then just don't let go of it. Just hang on to it for as long as you can. Kieran, you've been absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I'm Tiffany with ComicPOP. See you guys later.